Welcome to The Line. Joining us this week to discuss that question and others is Catherine McGill, who heads up New Mexico's Black History Organizing Committee. So happy to see you at the table again.
Thank you.
Tom Garrity is back with us. He's the owner of the Garrity Group, PR, and a host of the Second Half podcast, which was instrumental in keeping us all informed about this session. Appreciate that, Tom. Daniel Foley's here, insurance man par excellence and former House Republican whip. And editorial page editor of the Santa Fe New Mexican newspaper, that would be Inez Russell Gomez. Thanks for making the trip down from Santa Fe today. Now, we're going to ask all of you to pick people or groups of people who really gained either stature or policy for their agenda this legislative session. Inez, I'm going to start with you. Who strikes you as really coming out ahead for this session? A lot of folks thought they had a leg up going in, but who actually came out?
I hope the people of New Mexico. Because when you think about it, this was an economic session at its base.
Right.
When they raised the minimum wage, they passed legislation to help start renewable energy, and with the Energy Transition Act, they made sure they're going to be investing in Northwest New Mexico so that a lot of those jobs will be in the places that are going to be hurting once we get off coal.
Right.
So I think a lot of the legislation, as everyone was fighting over social issues,
right,
a lot of things were going through that hopefully are going to mean that families and individuals working are going to make more money and be able to keep more of their money.
A lot of bread and butter stuff, right?
Yep.
A lot of real stuff there. Tom, again, there's a sense that, picking up on what Inez just said, that we have to make up some ground for things lost over the past decade or so. We've not had the economy to put money into things. Is that part of the success that you see coming out of this session as well?
It is, and the person who's kind of carrying that flag of success is Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. And I think she's really the big winner out of this whole legislative session. The reason why is typically when you see candidates run for office, you see them promise everything under the sun.
Yes.
And then they get elected and they go, oh yeah, well that was just to get elected. Governor Lujan Grisham has basically accomplished everything that she said she was going to accomplish in her first legislative session. And for that, it's integrity, whether you like it or not, is based on your political belief. But you know what? If you wanted to know what she was going to do, all you had to do was look at her campaign promises. And for that, that is the reason why I think she's the big winner.
Interesting point there. I want to ask you, when we kind of circle the table here, to come back and talk about her relationship with Senate Democrats especially. I want to kind of touch on that too. Dan Foley, winners, losers, how do Republicans see this session? There's some quotes out there that a lot of Republicans are not so crazy about what happened this past session.
Were there Republicans up there this session?
Right. Didn't hear much from them.
I mean, sometimes there's a speed bump, but I mean, no, I mean, look, Tom raises a great point. Before I get too excited about giving Governor Lujan Grisham all these kudos, she did get a lot of stuff that she said she was going to get. She also has both chambers.
Right.
So I mean, it's not like this was an uphill battle for her, right? It's not like she got elected and had to fight Republicans. I mean, they're absolutely non-existent in the House. So I mean, it was clearly. I think what's shoring up. Clearly, the governor had success. There's no doubt about it. But I think if you were to talk to the governor, in my opinion, I think she'd be extremely frustrated with how the session went, because you have both chambers, and I think she got stifled on a lot of things that she came out wanting. And I think the winner in the session is going to. I think the winner has to be the Senate Democrats, John Arthur Smith and those folks, Joseph Cervantes, the folks that took a more tempered step, said, hey, well, let's slow the roll. We got 4 years with you as a governor. Let's not do everything day one. And so I think that, going into the session, there was a lot of talk about, are they going to be non-existent, right? You got the supermajority in the House. You've got some new Senate, progressive Democrats. What's going to happen? So I think, I think the one who I got to say that I think probably came out as a winner, obviously the governor, Peter Wirth, Senator Wirth. Senator Wirth, there's nothing conservative about Senator Wirth. He's a fairly progressive Democrat, and I thought he did a good job of managing and protecting the Senate as a whole and working with the Senate Democrats and keeping the conservative Democrats. In the past, there was a real splinter in that caucus, and you see leadership on one side or the other, and you see the leadership going at each other. And so I think Peter Wirth really stepped up his game as a leader and said, listen, I'm going to be able to keep the Democrats together, keep us work with the Republicans. And I think he really excelled as a statesman after this legislative session.
He got his money's worth, or spent his money's worth, those last 2.5 days, especially when it was really getting down for things like Well, we'll touch on a couple of things here. We'll get Kathy in before we do that. Who's the big winner for you out there?
Obviously, I think the House Democrats really are shining, and they can say that, look, we worked together and we got some stuff on the table that had been neglected for a whole lot of years, and we are doing what our voters have asked us to do, and we're bringing it to the fore. We're bringing it up for discussion, and they got a whole bunch of things sent up to the Senate for review, and hopefully sent up to the governor's office for passing legislation in April. And I think that it's something that we haven't seen for the past 8 years. You know, they sort of had their voices suppressed, and so they've been able to come out and talk about, I think, what a lot of voters would like to hear.
Any winners? Well, I got you. Any winners or losers for women, people of color? Were there things that could have gone better in your view?
I think
that
that
were left out there.
The decriminalization of abortion, that particular bill that didn't wind up getting to the governor's office, and she made a statement about the fact that she wanted to see it happen.
Right.
I know they worked hard to make it happen,
Sure.
and it did. You know, I think for the first time, really look like it was going to pass, and so I think we should have been able to get that done for women and families in New Mexico, and I'm sad that we didn't get it done.
It's not over though, as they say, right?
It's not over.
You know, Inez, interestingly, the Ethics Commission, you know, listening to the group that Matt Grubbs was leading, our reporters that came in, the idea that ethics was out there, the voters by 75% had wanted this, but it really didn't get much traction. It was about halfway through the session, it finally got going, and there was a danger it might not have gotten there unless there was a big push at the end. Speak to that, too. The ethics thing was a very odd journey.
It was an odd journey, and it really leads you to wonder why in the Senate there's such opposition to transparency.
Right.
I wrote an editorial in 2016 that actually led to one of the senators coming to my office to kind of yell at me nicely.
Right.
But the headline was Senate Rules Where Ethics Go to Die, something like that. And you have to wonder, even as Senate leaders are powerful, how one person can stop.
Right.
And that bill only made it to the floor because Peter Wirth asked it to be introduced as a dummy measure. It got stuck in rules. Yep. And at some point, you have to say, do you reappoint those people who stymie good government legislation? That was a constitutional amendment approved by 75% of the voters, and it almost did not make it to the governors to get passed.
It's almost unthinkable that that it wouldn't be a priority like from day one, rack up a big victory, and then just move on from
and
there.
move on to other
Right.
things. And as it is, the committee's not going to have subpoena power.
Right.
So
right.
that's, I
That was a
think,
big
a
one.
weakness in that bill.
That's
So,
right.
but we got something, and now we get something better next time. And hopefully, behind the scenes, the bosses in the party are going to say, you can't keep killing ethics legislation.
Good point there, Tom. You know, this angst between, you know, certain conservative Democrats and more moderate Democrats and more liberal Democrats. There's a bit of a scrum going on there on the Senate side of the world. Yeah. Where does this all play out eventually?
Well, it's a big tent.
Right.
You know,
Small door.
How many? Small door, big tent.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things when you have, you know, so many senators who are of the same party. Not everybody is going to agree on the same things. You know, to kind of play off of Inez's point with respect to the Senate Rules Committee, it wasn't just Senator Linda Lopez. It was a 3-3 vote, and then the reason it was an even vote is that some senators decided it was easier just to take a walk. Right. And so, you know, it just shows that there's a lot of healthy debate and discussion. Right. But that's one way to look at it. Anyway. So when you look at the relationship, though, with the Democrats, with the fourth floor, I think what we've seen this year is we've seen more collaboration, especially with Senate Majority Leader Peter Wirth and the governor's office, and really trying to find ways to, you know, protect the governor from bad legislation, because, you know, just because the House sends over, I'm sorry, Brian Egoff, had a mind blank there, was talking about 2,500 pieces of legislation being moved out of the House.
That's right.
That's not necessarily a good thing.
That's right.
And so I think that it's a good thing that Senator Wirth and the governor were all having continued discussions to make sure that everything, you know, that the bad legislation didn't make it to her.
Good point there. Got about 20 seconds, Dan, if you want to throw in something on that relationship between, you know, Clemente Sanchez has been mentioned.
Yeah, so the governor's going to have to realize, the one thing the governor's going to have to do is I thought that, you know, she clearly has an agenda, clearly has a mandate. I mean, she won the election clear. I mean, there was no late night counts of who was the governor. but I think she's learning that you've got to work with everybody. And, you know, a big test going forward is going to be, can she compromise, right? Because one of the things that I've seen is, like, on the abortion issue, she, you know, it's all or nothing. I mean, she wants it this way and this way only. Right. And I think you're going to find that the legislature, even for all of its faults, is fairly pragmatic. And I think that the Senate has proven that, you know, they do a decent job at doing that. And I think if she can't bring those folks in, I think she's going to have a hard time, because you're not going to beat them in an election. You're not going to set a progressive down and beat John Arthur Smith in an election. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting battle, see if she can work with that group and bring them in.
Have to let be the last word. When we come back to the line, we'll dig into immigration, which may be this year's defining political issue.